try to fit... Nice whip.
What the hell are you doing? Who are you supposed to be dressed like, James?
Lil Wayne. It's what he wore at his last runway show.
Oh, Lil Wayne.
You told me I needed to try to fit in, so I stayed up all last night studying your culture.
I'm sorry, what?
And to those who say jazz is the only indigenous American art form, I say listen to a little Jay-Z, my friend. Oh, I forgot the gin and juice. Should I run back inside?
They put the truth right in your face. He tripled down on this shit. He said, I stayed up all night studying your culture. He said, for those who say that jazz is the only indigenous culture, and then he said they should maybe listen to a little Jay-Z. He didn't say African American. Wake up, y'all. Wake up.
Let's have a little chit chat. And this one right here, I'm going to keep it all the way. I'm talking about, we ain't even keeping it 100. We ain't keeping it 1,000. We're going 10,000 on this one. Did y'all listen to that? And this is a movie put right out front to show you what they actually think of this thing that we call our culture. He learned it in one night. That's what he said in the movie. One night. That's it. That's all it took. This thing that we're so proud of, and we call it our heritage, the richness of our heritage goes back past 500-600 years. That's the truth. After that, here, African Americans, slavery for 400 years. And the moment that we started to put together a rich heritage over here, it got destroyed between the 20s and the 60s. And it got destroyed because of things that were put out here in order to separate us. I don't know how many times I can possibly say this. Thank you, Sweetest, for sharing this. Because just a couple days ago, I was talking and responding to a Dominican young lady who came on and actually separated themselves from African American, distanced themselves or distanced her group of people from African Americans. And just because I said what I said doesn't mean I don't understand. You see, a lot of people utilize the things in our so-called culture in order to do what? To convenience themselves. They're one of us while it's convenient, but then they step right away as soon as they feel like it. As soon as they start to look at certain things that we do, and as soon as they look at certain things that we embrace in this culture that we're speaking of. You heard it right there. Gin and juice, rap, Jay-Z. I learned it in one night. Because at some point, our culture, or the culture that we talk about, all the stuff that you sit back and you listen to, the Dr. Umars talk about, all the things that we talk about our culture, our history, all of those things, we have a 500-year gap between anything that actually fucking matters. And that's the truth. That's the truth. Everything that is associated with us, those stereotypes are our culture. So that's why it's so easy to identify with us when it's convenient. Because it's a temporary thing. It's a temporary thing. So then when you see people distance, and like I said on the video to the Dominican lady, I'm not saying what I'm saying out of anger. I'm saying what I'm saying because I realize that this is what we're reduced to over here. because we continue to justify bad behavior. We continue to do all of these things that talk about separation. We continue to do all of these things that tear each other down. We continue to sit back and argue on this app rather than sitting back and understanding that the reason why there's so much turmoil in between us is because there ain't no leader. Because the leaders, the people who are able and capable of being leaders are not accepted, because no one is listening to positives, because we embrace all negatives. So ask yourself, what is our culture? 400 years of slavery? We had a 60-year period between slavery and between where we became prosperous. Between the slavery and between where we actually became prosperous. And then we had 40 years to enjoy that prosperity. We were married. We were a family. We were having families. We were building our families. We were building our culture up. And everybody sit back and we talk about what the world was as compared to what it is. And everybody wanted change. They wanted to be their own person. And the fucked up thing about it is, the best parts of what our culture could have been, we left that shit behind. And that's the truth. God bless. Thank you, sweetest. Show off. I also want to get this in. You see the reaction to the Black National Anthem? Lift every voice and sing. Ladies and gentlemen, I learned that when I was 4 years old. I learned that song when I was 4 years old. I knew it existed all of this time. I'm 43 years old. I learned it when I went to kindergarten in music class. We had to sing it. Do y'all even understand that there's a day that is set aside or was set aside for black people to stand together, to come together? It's called Black Solidarity Day. It's February 2nd. Do y'all even realize that? Do you even know that? Do you even understand that? I saw so many people come on here on this app, and they didn't even know that we had a Black National Anthem. And then I saw others come on here and say things like, we should be offended that they played that song at the Super Bowl. And say things like, the national anthem, Star-Spangled Banner, is for everyone. And they don't know what the second stanza says. They don't understand what the second stanza says. The one that they don't sing out loud, but still exists to this day. And that's what I mean. The best parts of us, we don't take with us. People don't know about Black Solidarity Day, especially down in the South. People don't know about Black Solidarity Day. People don't know about Lift Every Voice and Sing. I learned that song when I was 4 years old, 5 years old, in music class in kindergarten. I've known it existed for 40 years. It was written in 1909 as a poem that was changed to a song and then named the Black National Anthem. So why do you think they don't want us to have that? Show off. As promised, this is part 2. And I told y'all, 10,000% honesty. That's what I'm on right now. So ladies and gentlemen, I've been saying something for at least 8 years, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on here. I've been saying something, but I enlisted a little bit of help to reinforce it. Tell me if this hits different.
We never intended them to be anything other than a slave. But they began to grow in number and in power, and eventually they fought their way to some freedom. So we became even more cruel, and to keep our black Americans down, we lynched. But yet they rose. So then we used the welfare system, the criminal justice system, to keep them down, to contain them, to destroy them. But yet they rose and they're rising. Then we built prisons and jails to hold them. Yet they rose. And so now we are doing exactly what the Pharaoh did at the end, sending out a decree, kill them. So until we admit that when we wrote this Constitution that all men are created equal, that we never intended to include our black brothers and sisters, our nation may end up facing exactly what the Egyptians faced when they refused to let God's people go. So I'm going to say this to my white fellow Americans, that the bloodshed that is on its way is not on the hands of our fellow black Americans, but is on our hands. We are the ones that are refusing to let God's people go. We are the ones that are refusing to acknowledge that we do not value our black brothers and sisters as equal individuals or equal Americans as us white men. And to my black brothers and sisters, the racial issues, as I've said, have been there from the very foundation. But why do we see it more? Because there's a shifting. See, us white men have been at the head since the foundation. But we've had a black president. And you know, we've done everything in our power to keep him from really changing things. Now we have another minority rising to the top, a white female. What does that say? Those of us who are white men who have been at the head are now starting to see and fear that we are going to become the tail. And we know what we've done to you. And so now we're fearful that you're going to do to us what we have done to you. But I will say this. I've lived in a black community for 23 years. I've never been treated the way that this country has treated my black Americans. So I call out my white Americans to say we better heed.
The question is, did that hit a little bit different? Did it hit different because he don't look like me? But he's telling you the same thing that I've said on this app several times. Same thing I've said on YouTube many times. Same thing I've said on Facebook many times. This is how it actually went. Alright? So when you look at all of these things, and you see all of these things, and then you see someone who doesn't look like us, co-sign it, please go back and rewind the video and watch him again. The reason I want you to do that is because I want you to recognize this. I want you to recognize that at some point this man stopped talking about what they did and start talking about what they made available, which made those things, the things that have torn us apart the most, self-inflicted. They served it on a plate, and we utilized it against one another. From the welfare system, to child support, to subsidized housing, they made these things available, and those things have to get paid for somehow, so that forges the separation. Not to mention feminism, not to mention all of these different things that also add to the fray. And those things were continuously improved on and improved on and improved on to the point that we've reached today where they've added social media on top of it, which leads us to do what? Argue, fuss, fight, bicker, because we can't come to a conclusion because there is no leader. Now, every successful entity in this country has a leader, has someone who is clear-cut, in charge, and willing to make decisions and ready to make decisions and is capable of making decisions. However, the ones of us, as I stated in the last video, the ones of us who are most capable to make the best decisions don't get listened to. You know why? Because nobody wants to hear someone talking about being positive and moving forward. Oh no, nobody wants to hear that. You know what everybody wants to hear? The arguing, fussing, fighting, bickering, and all of the things that are promoted on this app as well as every other app. So where does that leave us? That leaves us not even acknowledging what that man who was just on that video said as some things that even happened. All right? So make no mistake about it, y'all. The welfare system was the start of it, and it was created not for us. However, when a certain group of people got wind of it, they decided that all I have to do to not have to submit and listen to that dude is to sign up for it and not have him in my house. And they're going to make sure I eat. They're going to make sure I have utilities. They're going to make sure I got a roof over my head. And it became so. And what happened was, all they did was capitalized off of it. It's always business. They took lemons and made it into lemonade. And said, this is how we do. It's not what we have to do. It's what the ones that they love and they will always come back to, and the ones that motivate them. It's them. That's the road that needs to be traveled. Fast forward to today. Look at what we do. Look at what we do. Because we will always keep coming back to you. And what frustrates you the most? Those guys who going overseas and saying they're never coming back to you. So, all of that being said, it's Black History, y'all. Where's the mentioning of Lewis H. Latimer? Created the filament for the light bulb. Where's the mention of George Washington Carver? You know those peanut butter crackers that you may have been eating to get you through to lunch? The peanut butter. George Washington Carver. Henry McCoy. You were driving today. You came to a stoplight. That's Henry McCoy. Eli Whitney. You wearing a white t-shirt? You got a t-shirt on up under your undergarments? Cotton. Where's the mention of these? This is what I mean by the best parts of our heritage, our culture left behind. Where's the talk of it? We get the shortest month and we don't even make do and do anything with it. We don't even talk about it. But you know what we do justify? We justify getting locked up, going to jail. Chris Rock said it a while back. He said that a person coming out of jail gets more respect than the person coming out of college. We shame those who wear suits and try to up themselves, up to actually calling out their sexuality as being a farce. We think people that we call or people that we look up to worship or whatever the case may be, because they sing, they're our leaders. Because they rap, they're our leaders. Because we envy their money, they're our leaders. We look up to those dudes. And in some cases, those dudes and those gals, and in some cases, we even worship those people as if they're gods and goddesses. That's where we are. That's our culture. And that's the raw truth. Take it. 10,000% honesty. That's what I said I was on. So what is our culture? Really? Show off. Maybe you should have watched the other two videos that I did about what our culture is. Or you could just watch this one. You know, I grew up in this so-called culture that we have as African Americans. I grew up in this culture where we ridiculed those who didn't have what we had. And we hated those who had more than what we had. I grew up in a culture where we gave more respect to a person getting out of jail or going to jail or doing felonious things than those who do things to better themselves. I grew up in a culture where if you are a black man who regularly wears suits, you are considered to be a sellout. I grew up in a culture where you had to look like money even if you didn't have money. Even though we know with all our hearts, those of us who have money have no need to show that they have money because it only attracts the attention of those who are not real. I grew up in a culture where we give insulting names to those who actually understand and try not to be problematic to their girlfriends or to their counterparts, men or women. The words pick me and simps. I grew up in a culture where if you didn't have a certain pair of shoes on, if it didn't have the Jordan emblem on it, a Nike swoosh, or Adidas sign, or Reeboks, you were ridiculed and unmercifully attacked verbally until you were able to get something else with some symbol on it. I grew up in a culture where marriage is looked upon as a downgrade in life. I grew up in a culture where we go back and forth about wanting to do dope things for each other. I grew up in a culture where you kind of get the point. So what is our culture? You see, that's the point that I was making. That they can appeal to us by all of these stereotypes that are all negative because that's what the African American culture is. They appeal to us through alcohol. They appeal to us through gangster activity. They put shows on with that. All those shows that appeal to us in mass are shows of us going against each other, fighting each other, throwing drinks at each other, doing all of those things. They appeal to us by creating an ugly ass shoe. They appeal to us by creating all of these things that we tag ourselves in and that we also utilize as our identity. Do you know why those things became our identity? Because we've accepted it. You see, I've made it to a point in my life where I wear Nikes, I wear KDs, I wear Jordans, I wear Puma, but I also understand the relevance of life that those things have, which is really nothing other than to keep my feet warm. As a grown man, I have to live up to a standard for my kids because I don't want them to go to school and get bullied. And that is just a fact of life. You know why? Because these are things that we have put into our children. We have passed those mannerisms down. We have done it so efficiently that we don't even fucking think about it or recognize it. And the fact that you came on and tried to challenge me about a point that was being made that I was saying, and I was speaking directly to the video that has surfaced of this man on the news talking about appealing to black people with some ugly ass sneaker, saying that we just love sneakers and that's how you get to us and that's how you decide to take the voters from Biden and all of those things. This man is literally saying that, and you're saying that I'm not making a point? Then maybe you should check out my videos, bro. Show off.